Let's go to another game that is that's got a pretty low total, and actually this is one the total has dropped, I believe, 3 points since it came out on Sunday. It'll probably have dropped more by the time you listen to this episode. Alabama at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Alabama's a 2.5-point favorite on the road. The total at the moment is 47.5. I tend to agree with the people hammering the under on this thing that this is going to be a fairly low-scoring affair.
Yeah, I tend to agree that with that as well. But also, when that happens, I tend to take the points. Right, if I'm picking a side here, if it's a low-scoring game, I'd gobble 2.5 here.
We'll be right back with more picks, but first, let me tell you about Rhoback. They've got something new. That's right. It's the Performance Crew. You've heard me talk about the Performance hoodies, the polos, the Q-zips, the joggers, and the shorts. Well, I've got this Performance Crew. It might be better than my Performance hoodie. I don't know. I have to trade them off and see how I feel about that. But this is perfect for when the weather just starts to cool down. Isn't quite cold yet. This is your perfect fall shirt. Rhoback has done it again. So go to rhoback.com, use the promo code Staples to get 20% off your first order. Whether you need your hoodies or your Q-zips for a little bit cooler weather, whether you need the crew for the perfect fall shirt, whether you need the polos because it's still warmer you are. Well, I'm in Florida. I still need my polos. Got plenty of those too. Go to rhoback.com, promo code Staples, 20% off your first order for the most comfortable gear you can find.
Andy, Alabama in the offensive defensive lines is not what they used to be, right? And that's one place where A&M is excelling right now, right? Especially on the defensive line. And so we've seen Alabama struggle this season when playing a defensive line, really Texas, that was really able to get their quarterbacks off their spot, get the offensive linemen to make some mistakes in the run game. And you have an A&M defensive line they can do that in this game, right? Like they're able to make this to be the difference makers in this game. And I think that really tips the scales to me for A&M to cover and win this game. And again, I mean, betting against Nick Saban is typically bad money. But I think A&M has the important pieces in place to beat a team like Alabama.
Well, this is amazing to me because 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how Alabama's dead. We still weren't sure about A&M because they were coming off that loss to Miami.
Yeah.
The winner of this game is in the driver's seat in the SEC West. I would not be shocked if whoever wins this game wins the SEC West.
Yeah.
And I don't have a strong feeling about who's going to win this game. I agree with everything you said about A&M's defensive line against Alabama's offensive line, potentially causing Milroe to make some mistakes, which is what he did in the Texas game. There were two critical mistakes that if he doesn't make those, that game is pretty much a deadlock. So the part I want to see is, can Alabama disrupt Max Johnson? Can they cause him to make some mistakes? Because that'll make a difference. With A&M's defense, the big questions out of the Miami game were, can they get pressure? Can they tackle? It may be that Miami's offensive line was just good, and that's why they couldn't get pressure, because they certainly seem to be able to get pressure against Auburn. And they certainly seem to be able to do it against Arkansas.
That brings up something fun that I've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So we have 3 second-year coaches, Mario Cristobal, Dan Lanning, and Brent Venables. And they have proven track records. Now, of course, Dan Lanning has not done it as long as the other coaches have, but Dan Lanning was at Georgia with a really good defense that he controlled. I know Kirby had saying that, but it was his defense.
Yeah, Dan Lanning called the plays,
Brent Venables, obviously, for so many years at Clemson. And then Mario with offensive line, sort of building up in the trenches, what he did at Oregon. And after 1 year, when it didn't go so well on defense for Oregon, Oklahoma, and then Miami on offense and on defense as well, like on the lines, everyone's like, no, those guys can't do it anymore. I don't trust. It's like, give them a year. Give them a year. And look what Miami's done. They brought in a bunch of good football players in the offensive and defensive lines, and they're much better. Look at Oregon defensively. Dan Lanning brought us whole new secondary in. Guess what? They're so much better. Their best linebacker hasn't even played yet this season. Look at Brent Venables, Oklahoma. Give them one. Andy, people wouldn't give them one season. And I'm not surprised that Miami, it was one of my favorite win totals this year. It was 7.5. I hammered the over. I'm like, guys, I watched this at Oregon. I watched Mario in year 2 win the Rose Bowl at Oregon. Like, just give him his own guys. And it's so funny to me how we just can't give patience anymore. 1 year and all of a sudden, and it wasn't like Oklahoma was, I know they had a year they didn't really want to have, but it wasn't like Oregon was terrible last year or Miami was, I know, again, wasn't the best season, but like I get some frustration being there, but like they figured it out. What a surprise. Mario knows how to recruit offensive defensive linemen. I'm shocked, right? Brett Venables knows how to call defense. What a surprise, right? I mean, and Dan Lanning knows what he's doing.
It's interesting because this feeds into Texas A&M a little bit here too, because remember they signed that great recruiting class in 2022. They go 5-7, and it was like, oh, it's over. That recruiting class was a bust. Blah, blah. No, they're actually still incredibly talented, and now those guys aren't freshmen anymore.
Yes. But A&M is different. I think there were so many years we kept hearing right about them being back, and we'll talk about Texas, Oklahoma. I would imagine same thing, right?
Yes.
Like we're back, and then when you're not, then of course you get hammered for it. But I think A&M to this weekend. Again, I hate picking against Bama, but I think A&M takes this one, and then we get a kind of a are they back sort of discussion, or are they really ever where they want to be? A&M is interesting, man. They have, you would think that they have won 10 games over multiple seasons, like in the last 15, 20 years. It's just not true. I'm kind of shocked that, I guess Texas is but Texas has had better seasons. We talk about Texas and A&M, like you're like guys, like the winning is not backed up by the hype each year.
Well, it's because with Texas A&M especially, all of the pieces are there. They have the location, the resources, the fan passion, you name it, the talent, and they never put it together. But it feels like they might be able to now. The problem is you have to do something like beat Alabama to get there.
But that's college football. You got to beat good teams to be good teams. And so it feels like A&M might be on the precipice of that happening on Saturday.
I am still going to take Alabama. I'm going to go down with this ship if it's going down. Because here's what's going to happen. Either Alabama is going to win this game, go in the West, potentially win the SEC and make the playoff, or they're going to lose it and somebody else takes the mantle.
Yeah.
And maybe that's A&M. Because A&M at that point would be the favorite, I think, in the SEC West. Because remember, their only loss is to an ACC team. And watching LSU doesn't give you a ton of confidence. They've already beaten Auburn and Arkansas. They're going to beat Mississippi State. They got to go to Tennessee. That's going to be tough. But if they can win this one and have this in their back pocket, they got a good shot of winning the West. But I'm not ready to see Nick Saban hand it over quite yet. I don't know that's ready to happen yet. So I'm going to take Alabama. I could be hilariously wrong, but I'm going to take the Crimson Tide in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On 3 Sports YouTube channel.